Okay, so this is a 2006 Nissan Altima SER trim with a 3.5 liter V6 VQ35DE. Now the problem this car is having is it has an oil leak, and this is a very common issue on these motors, whether it be in a Quest or any other car that this particular motor is used in. First thing you want to do is exactly as I've done. Lift the car up, put it on jack stands, and then drain all the oil out. Next we're going to remove the right front wheel, and in the event that your car has the wheel liners in it, this one doesn't, you'll remove them as well, which will provide you access to everything behind the wheel. Okay, so now that the wheel's off, we can go ahead and show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Now, when I originally looked at this, I honestly thought it was an oil pan leak. The real problem is there is a gasket behind this oil cooler. You can see the cooling lines running to it. It's exactly what the oil filter bolts up to. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and spray some brake cleaner all over this area and just kind of clean it off so it'll be a little bit easier to work with. Now the very next thing you're going to want to go ahead and do is remove your oil filter. Might leak a little bit, but that's alright. I'm going to go ahead and pull the filter out and just set it aside. With the next part, I have a 22 mil socket. It just goes over that, and you just pull that center bolt out. We'll call it a bolt. I did have to move the camera back a little bit because my shaft here is a little too long. But give it a good crank, it'll start coming out. And then you should be able to thread it out by hand. You can use a deep socket, but as you can see, a normal size socket works just fine. And so just go ahead and bring it out, set it aside, and I'll end up wiping it off before I stick it back in anyways. Okay, so I have that bolt removed. What you do now is you can see that orange O-ring that's right there. That's the offending part that you got to remove. Just go ahead and pull it out. You can see the new one is actually just a little bit wider. That's kind of a good thing. Feels a little bit tighter as well, so hopefully it should give us a good seal. Now going back on with this, you're going to want to get some oil, and just like you do with a normal oil filter, just go ahead and lube it up a little bit so it makes a proper seal, and then stick everything back on. So what I'm going to do, you guys can't really see it too well, but I can see it just fine and feel it just fine. I'm going to put it into the back of the oil cooler. Kind of run my hand around and try and get it to line itself up. Now everything's put back together, put the seal back on, put the bolt back in, torqued it down, and put the oil filter back on. So now I'm just going to clean it up, so just in case it does leak, I can see just where it's coming from. And so I'm going to go ahead and put the oil back in the car. And then after that's done, start it up, let it warm up a little bit, and check it for leaks at the same time. And so all you have to do now, just make sure it hasn't started leaking or anything like that, and you should be good. I've already dropped the car onto the ground, obviously put the wheel back on it, took it out for a test drive of about 10-15 minutes, and nothing appears to be leaking. So all in all, this is a pretty easy job, and it might be something worth looking at if your car is leaking on this side of the motor.